Buenas tardes and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Yo Soy Charla in celebration of 35 years of Hispanic Heritage Month. The Hispanic Heritage Foundation and BMW Group Unidos, ERG, wanted to honor and highlight the intersectionality of the Latino community, showcase our differences, and highlight how Latinos are not an ethnic monolith as sometimes perceived. We will be hearing the stories from our members of our community who will highlight what makes us similar as Latinos and what sets these speakers apart as individuals, as each person's identity is different and unique to them. On a logistical note, please use the chat box to ask questions, raise concerns, or give us energy to ensure it is said to all audience and not the default panelists, because we want everyone to hear your comments and questions. We will try to answer all your questions at the end of the program in the chat and in a follow-up email. We will include all the resources that were shared today. So please be on the lookout for that email in the coming days. So let's get started. First, we would like to welcome Juan Pablo Sanchez, who is from Tampa, Florida, and is a doctoral candidate at Mercer University and a global health consultant at Holistics Global Health Solutions. Take it away, Juan.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Once again, hello, good afternoon, muy buenas tardes. As you mentioned, Jessica, my name is Juan Pablo Sanchez, and I wanted to thank the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and the BMW Group Unidos for giving us this opportunity, because I think that the number one way to embrace our identity is to give us spaces to talk about the differences, because Latinos come from all different walks of life. We come from all different parts of Latin America, and we come in different shades. We like different foods. And I think the constant rhetoric in America, or the perception, is that we're all the same. So I'm excited to talk about identity and to talk a little bit more about my story. So when I think about identity, I really kind of break it down into three parts: where we come from, where we are, and where we're trying to go. And I think identity is really interwoven into those three components. So I'm a proud son of immigrants from Colombia. I was born in Medellin, Colombia. And my parents gave up everything they had to come to the United States for the opportunity to give me and my siblings a better living. We moved to Eastern Pennsylvania, and I always said that I had the best of both worlds, being born in Colombia, growing up in a Colombian household, but also having the privilege of living in the United States and the opportunities that afforded me, which included receiving a 10-year full-ride scholarship from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, receiving my bachelor's and master's in public health, and also being able to travel the world to over 26 countries. And had I not had the best of both experiences and having those core values that I identify so strongly with, of being gritty, being family oriented, working hard, and having a bigger purpose than myself, I don't think I would have the opportunity to really embrace and pursue my dreams. So kind of where am I at now? I've had the opportunity to work in public health. I've led initiatives to eliminate the barriers to access to healthcare and support vulnerable and marginalized communities across the country, as well as managing a portfolio of global health projects focused in Latin America and the Indo-Pacific region. I'm currently pursuing my Doctor of Public Health degree and recently founded Holistics Global Health Solutions, working as a global health consultant. So, when I think about the why, my past of, being an immigrant, being a first-generation American, and embracing the values that come with that, seeing my parents work hard to kind of give me and my siblings just that opportunity to pursue a better life than they did, really kind of is what gets me out of bed. It's what motivates me, and it's that calling of being able to support communities around the world and across the country that look like me, that went through similar experiences, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So kind of moving forward, I think that, founding Holistic Global Health Solutions and working in global health really is a part of my identity, because, there's advocating for health equity and trying to solve some of the world's most challenging issues really is interwoven in my experiences growing up as a son of immigrants who worked hard. And I think that one thing that we need to acknowledge is, the fact that, all Latinos were different. For example, a lot of times when individuals look at me, the first thing they may not see is me being Latino, because as a white passing Latino, that may not be the perception. But my experience, seeing my parents struggle, seeing them go through some of the, racism, some of the, the experiences where they were felt like they were less than because of who they are, is still part of my story. So I'm happy and excited to kind of be a part of this conversation. And I, especially during Hispanic Heritage Month, because I love being a part of the conversation that, even though we may be seen one way, that the lived experiences that we have as Latinos, we have a duty to kind of represent that with pride. And I look forward to hearing from the other panelists, and I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us, Juan. Up next, we have Dr. Veronica Vital, who is from Mesa, Arizona, who is the president-elect of the National Association of Hispanic Nurses. Take it away, Veronica.
Thank you for the warm introduction. Hello, everyone. As we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and Cancer Awareness Month, I am honored to share with you a brief part of my journey with cancer. I would like to briefly introduce myself so you have a general idea of where my journey started. I am a proud daughter of Calistro Serna Vital and Angelita Soto Vital. My father passed away at the age of 53 due to cardiac disease during my first semester in college, and my mother lost her battle to leukemia in 2016. I am third generation from Arizona. My paternal grandmother and father were born in Tempe, and my mother in Guadalupe. I was born and raised in Mesa, Arizona, and I have lived in a 3-mile radius all of my life. We are 7 siblings with a 20-year span from the oldest to the youngest, and I am the middle child. I am a proud mama, nana, and G-nana. I have 2 adult children, 12 grandchildren, and since I was a teen mama and my son was a teen daddy, I have been blessed with my twin great-grandsons at a young age. Despite having a baby in high school, I was the only child in my family to go to college. My first semester, I was so proud to be enrolled in college, and more so to be taking classes at the same time as my dad. I have to admit, I was daddy's favorite. I felt proud to be sitting at the table helping him with his math. Life was looking pretty positive until one day we unexpectedly lost him. My dad's life was abruptly ended as he passed away during open heart surgery. My life was shattered, and that was the start of a devastating void. And to this day, his death has greatly impacted my life. I have dedicated my educational journey to him as I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted to show him I could still graduate from college despite the challenges of being a young single mama. Today, I am blessed to say I am Doctora Vital. I have attained my PhD in nursing and a master's of legal study. I have been a nurse for 24 years and have served as a nursing champion. I am dedicated to advancing health equity and addressing health inequalities. I serve in a leadership capacity on community advisory boards addressing health disparities locally and nationally. And I have formed strong partnerships with nonprofit organizations such as Latina Strong. I have been a member of NON since 1997, since I was a nursing student, and I have served as a NON leader. And I am humbled to say that I am currently the president-elect of NON nationally. Overall, I was blessed with a good life until one day, in an instant, my life was shattered by a vision in the mirror. I was staying at a hotel at a conference, and one morning when I was drying off and getting out of the shower, I noticed dimpling in my right breast, which is a classic sign of breast cancer. At that point, I realized I would be a statistic. I had stage 3 invasive cancer. Breast cancer is the most commonly diagnosed cancer in women following skin cancer. About 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer, and 1 in 883 men will also develop breast cancer annually. My body image changed drastically with chemo. I no longer knew who I was, and I no longer liked who I had become. I felt like I lost my identity of being a woman. I was devastated when I lost all of my hair and had to wear a wig. My feet swelled and I lost several toenails, and the worst of all, I had to have a double mastectomy. I hated looking at myself in the mirror, and I had to learn to like myself again. Throughout my journey with cancer, I experienced a full range of emotions. Initially, I was in denial and I felt isolated and depressed. I was overwhelmed by the burden of guilt that I carried as I was stripped of my identity of being the nurse, always caring for others, and instantly I became the patient. I was devastated that I could not fulfill my role as a daughter to provide care for my mom upon her last days as she was battling leukemia. She was in hospice when I was diagnosed with cancer, and I did not share with my family that I had cancer until a few days before having my surgery. I mentioned to my siblings that I needed them to take over my mom's care as I would be going through my own journey with cancer. I asked my family not to tell my mom I had cancer, and my mom passed away a few days following my surgery. To this day, I feel some guilt as I was not able to properly say goodbye to my mom and share with her my cancer journey. Despite the many challenges I experienced in life, I am proud to identify myself as a strong Latina. I am a daughter, I am a mother, I am a nana, I am a ginana, I am a leader, I am a nurse, I am a survivor, and I am a warrior. Thank you for letting me share my journey with you. And I have provided some contact information if you would have any questions, or if you would like to contact me or would like more information about the Hispanic nurses. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Vidal, and for sharing your story. Un fuerte abrazo. You are brave. You are a warrior. So thank you for joining us and sharing that with us and the audience. Up next, we have Michael Fernandez from Newark, New Jersey, who is the Regional Security Specialist at BMW North America. Take it away, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you to everyone involved. Really excited to be here. This is a super important conversation to be having. Thank you guys for really allowing us and giving us the space to talk about this. You really do need a safe space to be able to talk about these things. First two speakers did an incredible job, so I have a tough act to follow, but I'll definitely try my best. When our co-chair at BMW Group Unidos first reached out to me about this topic, I was really intrigued and interested by it because I felt like, I could really speak to it well, given my background, right? So just a little bit about that background. I'm a first-generation American. I was born here in the United States to 2 Brazilian immigrants. I'm actually the only person in my entire family to be born outside of Brazil. So my parents came over to Newark, New Jersey in the early 90s with my brother and sister, and I was born here in 1996. So I was born and raised in Newark, which to me is a huge part of my identity. And I've been here ever since, besides the 4 years that I spent in college at the University of Maryland. So sort of want to take this time to really talk about identity and how important it is for each one of us, not only to recognize our identity, but to recognize what makes up that identity, right? And most importantly, to be proud and unapologetic about our identity in every single space that we occupy. So, like I said, I was born here in the US to Brazilian parents. I've always lived and still live in a very diverse community, predominantly made up of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. My first language was Portuguese, picked up Spanish along the way. And get this, everybody, I love baseball, right? So like, I love baseball. I love coaching baseball. I love mentoring high school baseball players. It really plays a huge role in my life, which is funny and crazy at the same time, because when I first started playing baseball and got into baseball, a lot of people in the neighborhood and, you know, really everywhere couldn't believe that I was a Brazilian playing baseball, right? People kind of think of Brazilians, you know, don't play baseball. You need to like soccer. You need to play soccer. That wasn't really the case for me, right? Going on a little bit about my background, first generation college student. I always like to say that I'm my parents' wildest dreams, right? And for that, I'm extremely proud. I ended up going to college at the University of Maryland. Like I said, I joined a Latino-based fraternity during my freshman year because I desperately needed a family away from home and to be a part of a community that I was familiar with. After college, I came back home. I've been living in Newark ever since. My fiance and I bought our first home in Newark last year, just 3 blocks away from where my parents live and where I grew up. So if you haven't noticed by now, being from Newark and having been raised here is a huge part and a huge aspect of my identity. I think, you know, the most beautiful part of identity, right, or the word identity, is that you can pick and choose what it consists of for you. So it's, you know, it's something that you can come up with. It's something that you should inherently feel passionate and proud about. And I really do believe that it's something that should be carried with you everywhere you go without fear, right? And that's like the most important thing, is just to be unapologetic and not fearful of your identity and showcasing who you are to other people. You know, as an example, in any space that I occupy, I really try to make it a priority to let others know who I am, right? How I identify, what my beliefs are. And really what I try to do at the end of the day is remain true to my authentic self. I think that's one of the most important things you can do in life, is to be your authentic self unapologetically anywhere you go, right? I feel like I owe that to myself. I owe it to my parents, my ancestors, my culture, but most importantly for me, I owe it to the people that are going to come after me, right? Just being able to establish the right to be myself in any space that I'm a part of, even if that space wasn't necessarily, you know, or initially designed to welcome me. I can't stress that enough. It's just like a very powerful feeling. So as I wrap up here, I want to leave everybody with a few lines from one of my favorite poems, Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. And the lines that really stick out to me are the following, right? Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So, you know, our culture is beautiful, our stories are beautiful, our identities are beautiful. And like I said, we owe it to ourselves, our families, and those who come after us to go out in the world and be proud of who we are, where we come from, and all that we share as a culture. So just wanted to share that with you guys. And like I said, I really appreciate you having me on here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Michael, and for sharing your wonderful story. Now we will hear from Jose Gawana from Washington, D.C., who is Director of Communications and Strategic Partnership at Latinx History Project. Take it away, Jose.
Thank you, and hello everyone. My name is Jose Gaona. Not the most common of names. I know it's really unique to my family. I come from Mexico. I was born in a small town in Michoacan, Mexico, called Tacámbaro, and we have very deeply rooted indigenous connections in that area. Recently found out that I'm actually majority indigenous, so really connected to my identity is that rooted indigenous culture from Michoacan. My family and I immigrated to California when I was 3.5. So I grew up in Northern California, sandwiched between the Pacific Ocean and the Redwood Forest, north of the Bay Area. And today I want to talk about a couple of different components of my identity. I think everyone has done a great job of really honing in on the uniqueness of all of our identities as different Latin, Hispanic identifying people, but it's not easy to compartmentalize ourselves into, even as individuals, into a single identifier. And I know I struggled with that here today. So I'm going to be touching on 3 parts of my identity that really have come from my lived experience, and today make up the focus areas of work that I undertake in Washington, D.C. A little bit about myself professionally before I get into those 3 different areas. I've been living in Washington, D.C., working in advocacy for the last 7 years, working as a policy professional and nonprofit consultant. So I've worked with a range of Hispanic and Latinx organizations, from small local groups to the largest national Hispanic organizations that have been around for a century. And we can move on to the next slide here. So the first organization I'm going to talk about connects to my identity as a gay Latino man, and it's the Latinx History Project. I'm the Communications and Strategic Partnerships Director, and this is an organization that has been around for 20 years and is really a pillar of the Latinx LGBTQ community, not just in Washington, D.C., which is where it's based, but across the country, as there are not many organizations. The intersection of my identity as a gay individual and also a Latin person is something that's really important to me, because there is a lot of history and a lot of intersection in that leadership, in the advocacy work that I undertake. There's a lot of history there that we're not necessarily taught because it's not passed down from generation to generation. But LGBTQ Latinx people have been leading in advocacy work for decades in the United States, from Sylvia Rivera at Stonewall to one of the very first recognized trans individuals in the entire American continent, who was a trans man in Mexico who fought in the Revolutionary War in the 1900s and was recognized by the Mexican government in the 20th century as a trans man and provided a pension for his service in that war. There's so much history to share, and I'm very proud of my leadership in that community and the advocacy work and the educational work that I am able to undertake and lead with the Latinx History Project, as that is one of those core components of my identity. And from here, we can move on to the next one. The next part of my identity that I want to highlight, that is a really core part of who I am and comes from my upbringing in a very rural and beautiful area of California, is my leadership as the National Policy and Advocacy Manager for a Hispanic conservation organization called Hecho, Hispanics Enjoying Camping, Hunting, and the Outdoors. This photo was actually taken last week. We had a group of leaders from across the Southwest coming into Washington, D.C. to advocate on important conservation issues, including local elected individuals and state leaders. And this photo was taken right outside the White House where we were meeting with the President's Council on Environmental Quality. So really, really proud of that work. And that stems from my upbringing in nature, being in a very rural community, loving nature, being a runner. So, you know, spending my afternoons and weekends in Northern California, running through vineyards, running through the forest, along the beach. It's something that's really ingrained into who I am as an individual. And I'm proud to work with an organization that uplifts and elevates Hispanic voices in that space. And the last part here that I wanted to highlight, being an immigrant myself, being a formerly undocumented individual who understands what that's like as a child, and then grew up with that in my family, is the work that I do with an organization called United Giving Hope. And this is actually a relatively new organization. As a nonprofit consultant, I helped start this organization just 2 years ago. And the work that this organization had been undertaking was longstanding, 30 years of doing the most compelling rescue work at the border with human trafficking victims and LGBTQ individuals escaping persecution, women and children, survivors of horrible atrocities that were trying to make their way as refugees to the United States. We formalized that work that had been undertaken by this incredible leader named Julie Contreras out of Chicago, and started this nonprofit, increased the amount of people we were able to help. And in the last 2 years, very proud to say that we've helped over 4,000 people who have needed to come to the United States or were in the United States and needed additional resources as they were looking to integrate into the country. Reconnected children with their parents who were lost. Unfortunately, we can't go into too much detail on some of the more compelling work that we do because we work around some dangerous situations with cartels and traffickers, but just an incredible work that I'm very proud to be a part of also as an immigrant myself. And these are the 3 things that I wanted to talk about today during my time because they are core parts of my identity. They are pieces of work that I'm very passionate to work around and lead on in this space, but this is my identity. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jose, and for sharing your identity with us. I do see a lot of people engaging in the chat. That's amazing. I do want to remind everyone to please set it so that everyone can see and not just the host. So just a friendly reminder. Up next, we have Joan Cantu, who is from Austin, Texas, and is a senior product designer at Dell Technologies. Take it away, Joanne.
Thank you so much for your time and attention. For many of our culture, our story speaks of firsts. First to break barriers, first to break generational trauma, first to build a new life for themselves and those they love. Today, I share my story of being the first woman in tech in my community and the first in my family to grow up in a diverse culture, learning from people of all backgrounds outside the Hispanic community. To set the stage, I need to start where it all began, with my parents' story. Have you heard the common icebreaker? If you could bring 3 things to an island, what would it be? Well, let's flip that. If you left an island and you had to leave behind everything to move forward, what would be the 3 things you take? My parents came from humble beginnings and left the island of Puerto Rico, a commonwealth of the United States, at the ripe age of 22, with nothing but a boombox that my dad prized, the clothes on their backs, and a limited knowledge of the English language. Despite the start, they never failed to instill their values around education. My father was an engineer and treated me equal to that of a son. He showed me computers at a very young age, and when I was of driving age, he asked me to change a tire by myself so that I would be okay on my own. These teachings helped me build confidence later in life. When I was in an engineering field surrounded by men, I could hold my own. My mother studied for most of my life, and I have memories of us sharing her small office space, the closet, while she worked on her thesis. She was the first on her side of the family with a college degree and PhD. Go Dr. Bruno. I was often inspired in how she led with kindness and community while excelling and breaking barriers in STEM. Switching gears a bit, my younger sister of 3 years was born with an intellectual disability. And as we grew up, I began to notice that our world was just not built to support people like her. She was often ridiculed. And in tech, accessibility is many times considered last, yet when she was given a phone and the opportunity to talk through the lens of a video game character or using audio to help her spell, I noticed a breakthrough. She was finally able to communicate with me more effectively in full sentences. With the enthusiasm to work to break these barriers in tech for people like my sister out in the world, I sought a computer science and engineering degree. Yet, this is where my story takes a turn. I wasn't prepared for what I faced next. In our freshman orientation, they asked us, look left, look right, and only one of you will make it to graduation. To my dismay, there were 2 women alongside me, and they didn't make it. When you're the only woman and sometimes only Hispanic in a classroom, many times you try to blend in, and I always wondered why few women in engineering feel a little bit colder. I did a little bit of a bias check to understand why I had this thought pattern. Turns out I had developed this as well and had to unlearn it. I had male professors that would not look me in the eye, yet would talk normally to my male peers. I was often followed and touched inappropriately without my consent. I was often told I was exotic, valued for how I look versus my intellect. And I could go on and on about what these barriers were. But with these systemic issues I faced, even if I had the best ideas of how we could do better, without influence, we will never be able to get those changes implemented. There was no one like me I could bring these issues to that could empathize and bring other Latinas, other women up. The closest role model I had was my mother, who I called frequently in tears. I often and perhaps unfairly confessed to her, "Mom, I can't do this. I can't do it anymore." I am forever grateful that she helped carry me through, a literal lifeline. Post-college, I tried to reconnect with my Hispanic community, and I often felt ostracized for being, and I quote, "too smart, a unicorn," that I've reached an unattainable goal of graduating from something like computer science and engineering. However, I noticed that they spoke in limiting beliefs, mentioning things like, "I could never be that smart. I don't want to give up 6 months of my life to study for an interview." Why is it so prevalent in our culture to value only hard physical work, but not intellectual work? For what good is it to be the majority of persons in a few years when we would have no influence on the technology, the laws, the digital products that we will abide by? We need to work towards eradicating anti-intellectualism from our lips and the lips of those we love. We need to work towards ensuring that we have the self-confidence to drive decisions of influence, bringing a safe space for others to come up with us. I am a Latino woman in tech, daughter of 2 Puerto Rican immigrants, caretaker of a sister with a disability, voice for accessibility in tech. Today, I speak for those who may not have the voice to do so. Going forward, I hope to use my seniority, my power to shape the future Hispanic critical thinkers. I do not shame them when they come to me with limiting beliefs, and instead help them build the mindset to move forward. I urge this talented community to help us change our mindset in the Hispanic community. Together, we can build the influence to shape the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Joanne, and for sharing that beautiful, beautiful story and your Yo Soy story. And of course, go Dr. Bruno. Up next, we will hear from Juan Santana from Woodcliffe, New Jersey. Juan is the future team lead at BMW North America. Take it away, take it away, Juan.
That's okay. That's okay. My granddaughter does call me Bruno. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. I'm glad that I got the opportunity to share my story. I'm going to face it. I'm going to not face it. I'm going to focus more on something that's been said many times during various speakers, which is family, familia, which is something very unique to us Hispanic, right? Because when we say familia, we say family, we're not just referring to our family, but it's everybody who surrounds us, including friends and colleagues that after many years, they become part of our family, and then we're no longer friends, we're familia. And we also have to be grateful because, like most of us, we came to this country because our parents were strong enough to make a decision to travel to a foreign country with a foreign language and take that risk to build a future for the family. And my parents did that early. And I'm first generation born here in the U.S., born in the Bronx, New York. But I did spend most of my childhood in the Dominican Republic, where I consider myself to be Dominican because just born here, I was raised in the Dominican Republic. And when you're raised in the Caribbean, Dominican Republic, not only are you raised by your parents, but you're raised by your community, your aunts, your neighbor. Everybody becomes part of your upbringing. So as you can see in this picture, my parents who came here very young, picture with my brothers and sisters in the Dominican Republic, and 2 of my favorite aunts who definitely had played a big role in my uprising and making sure that I became the man that I am today. Can we go to the next one? All right, the next thing after that is finding that one person. I was lucky enough in my life to find someone to spend the rest of my life with. 33 years together. As you see, there's a special picture there of the three kings, because my wife was born on January 6th, and I always said, I never knew that, 50 years ago, the three kings had brought me the best gift ever, which I didn't get to get until I actually met her. So my wife and I have a special history together because we've been married 4 times already. And who knows, we got married at a very young age. As you can see in that first picture, we were young kids. Then in our 25th year, we went to church and renew our vows in church. And then we had a trip to Israel where we actually were blessed in the Holy Land. And then one of the trips to Vegas, I say, hey, why not? Why don't we have Elvis bless us too? Because part of me is having fun and enjoying my life, and not just, all business. Something that plays a big role in my life, we go to the next one, why I work so hard, why I am the person I am, not only my wife or my kids, and my 2 wonderful grandkids. They mean everything to me. As you can see in the picture of my granddaughter, for her birthday this summer, I just dressed up as Bruno because she was crazy about the movie. So I showed up at the park dressed up as Bruno, and she was so excited to see me dressed up as Bruno. I give my life for my family. I work hard just so my family can see what hard work means and what does, what can you make out of yourself if you put in all the effort into it. And then the little guy there on the bottom there, my grandson recently born. He was born premature. I only have 2 pounds, and God bless, he's doing well. And as you can see, he's definitely more than 2 pounds now. Can we go to the next one? All right, so if we talk about, besides the family, I met someone, very early in my career path that became a mentor and guided me through my career and still guiding me nowadays. And this is one of the examples where when you meet somebody that becomes family. So she's not like my big sister. I graduated from school. I kept going back to school just to show my kids that, education is not just one degree. Education is an ongoing thing, and you have to keep pushing yourself and better yourself. And what a better way to do it is by showing also, right? I like to lead by example. So not only am I going to push my kids to get a higher education, but I'm going to go along the journey with you guys and show you what it means to get a higher education. In my spare time, just like our colleague from BMW, I did coach Little League. I'm a huge baseball fan. When I was living in New York City, I had my own league that I managed and work with kids. I love that. On the weekends now, I work with a lot of teenagers where I do a lot of mentoring for kids that are going off to college. And also, but that also led me to completing my circle, right? I also now sit at Monroe College as an adjunct professor. Also, trying to give back what those professors gave me when I was in that school, the help that they gave me to make sure that I had what I need to be successful in life. So now I get to, complete the circle by also doing the same thing for my students, and make sure that they have the right tool set for them to be successful in life. And even though my wife says that I'm a hard professor, I keep telling her my job is not just to teach the material, but to make sure they have the foundation that they're going to need to be successful in life. Because what comes after college is not a walk in the park. So they need to be ready. And to close it all up, one thing that is huge in our culture, right? We don't forget we are who we are because of the people that have been there in our life and the people that are no longer with us anymore. So COVID took a lot of people from us, but we are the people that we are because of that. And I'll close it up here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing, Juan, and for sharing a little bit about your family. I see a lot of folks really resonated with Bruno on the chat. Um, Up next, we will have Jesus Rodriguez from Arlington, Virginia. Jesus is the Senior Associate Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. Take it away, Jesus.
Hi, everyone. So I'm as previously mentioned, Jesus Rodriguez here. So I work at CAPCA, which is a public health organization, specifically with a team that administers technical assistance to coalitions across the country, specifically that work with prevention. And I also work with other special projects that address the opioid epidemic that we're seeing that's fueled by fentanyl. So that's where I'm at now. But before that, I also was doing a lot of political organizing. I was consultant, working in government, political affairs, you name it. And I was also leading the Latino engagement efforts for one of the two major political parties in the US. But before that, my story starts in Queens, New York, where I was born, in Corona. My parents immigrated from Mexico. My father actually came to this country when he was very young. He was just about 16 years old when he decided that he wanted to live a better life. And the life that he was living back home was no longer sustainable. He came to the US and he just worked about every job that he could find. Even at a French bakery that ultimately kind of started his long career in the baking industry. And some nights, obviously, were harder than others. Some nights he had to sleep in the stairs of a broken apartment just so he can save money, so that instead of buying it, he's like he says on clothes or any type of any type of things that we would find normal to buy for ourselves, even a good meal, he would just save that money just so that he could send it back home. That's the type of father he's been to me. He's just been my inspiration. Obviously love my mother. And the picture on the right is my family: Enrique, Angel, Joey, and Karina. And then in the picture on my left screen is myself and my sister, Karina, back when my father took me to Washington, D.C., just to see if he could inspire me and see where if he could help move me in the right direction. And despite him not having a lot of formal education, that did not formal schooling, that didn't stop him from his own education. He's as long as I know him, he's always been an avid reader, always consistently, even when times are rough, it was just like, what, we may not have money for this or money for that, but there's always going to be money for food or books. That was his thing. Sometimes I wouldn't ask for toys on Christmas, but I knew that I was going to get education. I knew that he was going to get a book for us. I knew that he was going to get a good meal for us. And that's what kind of got me involved, back in my hometown. And then later on, when we moved to New Jersey, actually, in a little city called Passaic, New Jersey, I started an organization called Mexican American Progress Movement to help lift our community, to give another representation of our community in the media and politics, and registering people to vote and just showing up for our community. I've had a lot of family members who fell into things that unfortunately put them in bad situations, but I decided to do something about it and be an outlet for those students who I knew share the same seats that I did, to have a better opportunity in this country. And that's sort of what brought me to DC as well. I did my undergraduate at the George Washington University, and I pursued I graduated political science. Kind of following the footsteps of my own dad, and my own, who also loves politics, my grandfather who passed away. But I later learned that he also, was very politically involved, and my grandmother later told me that the reason that he didn't want to continue pursuing it was because he was illiterate and he never really truly learned how to read and write. And so it's amazing that in this country, from one generation, from, going from grandfather who struggled to read and write in his own language, to coming to my father coming to this country and being able to born here. That's what made me also pursue that politics, because it's truly a testament that no matter where you come from, whether first generation, son of immigrants, that there's a place for you in this country. There's a place for you. And that you can also be part of this experiment that we call democracy. And that it's really truly up to us to get involved. And you can start small, you can start wherever you want, but it's important to get involved. And that's sort of what, eventually led me to travel across the country, meeting with Latino constituencies from South Florida to South Texas, up to, from East to West Coast. And I really learned something, and especially Latino voters, there's a lot of folks in the middle, a lot of folks, what we call a swing voter. And, what I learned is just so much that we have in common. No matter what your political affiliation, there is a lot of us, a lot of things that unite us, a lot of things that also keep us up at night, a lot of things that also concern us at the dinner table, a lot of things that we wish that we could change. And I actually am one of the belief that the first Latino president has already been born. I think that that person is already here. And I think that he's going to be able to represent all of us. And I also believe that there is nothing more beautiful than discovering who we are. And I think that's just it. And I think that as we look with, trying to discover our own identity, I go identify myself as Latino, and other times Mexican American, and sometimes it's that struggle, right? Am I Mexican enough? Am I American enough? And that has always been with me since as far as I've had conscience of an identity. And the things that I've learned being in rooms where I never thought I would be in, or being in places that even with other, Latinos from other communities, it's just that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because we're all kind of human beings. So no matter how you feel, more of this or more of that, like we're all just one big, beautiful family. And that's what I love about being Latino, that there's just family out there waiting for us to meet each other. And that's just what I love, that kinship, the ability to share a struggle, the ability to share experiences, and just knowing that there's family out there that we could connect with. It's just one of the most beautiful things that I could ever have the privilege of having. And that's my story. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jesus, and for sharing your beautiful story with us. For our final charla speaker, we have Fabiana Ayala Jordan from Columbus, Ohio, and she is the Customer Relations Team Leader at BMW Financial Services. Take it away, Fabiana.
Buenas tardes. How are you guys? Wow, what a responsibility to close these wonderful events. I want to start saying thank you so much to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation for this collaboration with Group Unidos and BMW for the opportunity and support that is given to us, the Latin and Hispanic people. After hearing all that wonderful histories, I don't have too much to share about me. I feel has been an amazing hour listening all these inspirational stories that all of you share. So thank you for that. But I will try to do my best. So like you say, I work for BMW Financial Services in Ohio. I am from Venezuela. So I am a Venezuela lawyer with a diploma in strategic management. And I come to US almost 9 years ago. My history maybe is a little different to another Venezuelans who unfortunately leave my country for political or security reasons that probably many of you already know. In my case, I come to US fall in love because I meet my husband online, who is American and born in Ohio. And we have been together 8 years. We have a beautiful family. I have two children, Mateo, who has 5 years old, and Olivia, who just turned 1 year old and 1 month last month. And they are the perfect example for me of the magical mix. So they are, I call them the mezcladitos because they are American, but their soul is so much Latin and Hispanic. They are bilingual, so I have a bilingual family, even when my husband doesn't speak Spanish too much, just what he wants to understand. And I have the pleasure to work for BMW for all these times in the United States. So I started working in BMW Financial Services directly for the Mexican market. And at the same time, a couple of years after, I have the chance to start working with the Canada market. And now I am supporting the USA. And I mentioned this because the BMW are showing us so much support. And I will be sharing in the chat the link in case you want to join us to be part of BMW as a great company who is supporting our community. At the same time, I try to be a good ambassador for the Midwest for a wonderful organization who support young kids who are fighting with cancer. And this organization is Forza Estefano. This was created for a beautiful Latin family in Florida. And I like I said at the beginning, I am trying to do my best as a good ambassador. In the pictures, it was difficult for me, big pictures, because I am a very social media and picture person. Who know me know that I am with my camera and my cell phone all the time. But here you have a little bit of the huge mountain that you see there is El Ávila, emblematic mountain in Caracas, my country. And I have the blessing to have all my family or my close family living in Ohio with me. I was the first one who left my country, but the blessing that right now we are all together, my dad with 84 years old, my mom, who are still together and show me the importance of the family. And that is exactly what I'm trying to teach to my kids, the family first, and how the Latinos, most of us grow with the importance of that, I would say roots maybe, is who is most important for me, my family. I love my job. I love all the partners I have, Yanni Maldonado, Karen Santana, the co-chairs, and see all the people interacting in the chat make me feel so proud. So thank you so much for this opportunity. And I hope be more in contact with all of you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Fabiana, and for sharing your beautiful story and the pictures of your family. We do have time for one question. So I will ask you all if you can please share, give us what advice would you give someone who feels like they are underrepresented in their community or workplace?
I can take a quick stab at this because I think there was a common theme in my presentation. So when you're the only one in the room, typically I would say to take up some space. So what that might look like is to not let someone else speak for you. If someone mentions a particular topic that kind of digresses for your point, to bring that back to the table, and to also to kind of bouncing on some of the other themes, to kind of show up as you are, and not let others take that power away from you. So a little bit of being authentic in that particular space, because there will always be something that will be thrown at you being the only person in the room. But if you can hold your ground, then you would be able to speak for yourself and bring others up with you.
I would love to add to that as well. As someone who spends their days advocating for our community, for others, I know the reality of what it's like to sometimes have to advocate for yourself. And I know that it's not the easiest thing to do, especially when we're in spaces where, we are the only person coming in with our lived experiences, our Latin or Hispanic identity. And my advice to folks that are experiencing that in any sector, I think, Joanne, you did an amazing job of talking to that within your space and your sector. And my heart goes out to folks that experience that. I think all of us have experienced that at one point or another in our spaces. You have to give yourself your power. You can't rely on the people around you in those ostracizing spaces to hand you authority or power to speak from your lived experience and the experiences of everyone that's come before you. You have to take that power for yourself and know that when you're in that room, to quote the vice president, when you're in that room, you're not the only person in that room with your lived experiences. Everyone who's ever come before you is standing in that room with you, and everyone in the world who has that shared lived experience is standing in that room with you.
I just want to add one more thing, if there's still time allows it.
Of course.
Having had experienced that, don't be afraid to speak up. You need to believe in yourself. Just because you look different or you speak with an accent, don't put yourself down. And sometimes we are the one to blame, that we hold ourselves back. You know, you're there because you work hard to get there. As a Latino, we all know that we have to work extra harder to reach the goals that we want. And once we're there, then we hold ourselves back. Don't be afraid. I know I at the beginning, I was experiencing the same thing, but nowadays I'm not afraid, and speak up, and people are, eventually they will start listening, but you have to keep repeating yourself, and you have to don't be afraid, please. Don't hold yourself back.
Yeah, and if I could add, I mean, of course, fear comes to mind right away because of the repercussions that could come from speaking up and, advocating for our communities. But it's not about ourselves. It's about the cost that it can have for the people, that a program or a product that's being developed that's going to impact our communities. For example, working in public health and global health, if I don't speak up, being a Latino, when there's a program, an initiative, something that's going to impact communities that are Latino, who come and look like my family and the community that I come from, and it's being designed by majority white folks or men who don't have those lived experiences, it may not be as effective. So it's important for us to not just think about ourselves, but think about who's going to be at the end of that. And using that fear of speaking up to actually empower us and be the voice for those who can't be in the room, for those who didn't have the privilege to have the same opportunities to you that got you to be in that room. So I would definitely, I've definitely used it in my narrative to use it to empower me. And the cost is not, the fear that I have, but more so the impact that it would have on our community, because Latinos are projected to be 1/3 of the US population within the next decade. And, companies, corporate America is going to have to start, cultivating their messages and what they do to garner our experiences and tailored to our, likes and wants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your thoughts and your wonderful feedback. We have reached the end of today's Yo Soy Charla. Thank you to BMW Group Unidos ERG for helping make this charla possible. We also want to say a big thank you to all of our speakers who were able to share their personal stories of identity with us. We will be sending out an email later with the charla link to rewatch, as well as all the contact information and valuable resources that have been shared by our speakers today. So thank you all for joining, and hope everyone has a good rest of your day.